Welcome to the Trust Driven Care podcast. Today is Trivia Day, where we strive to make medical research more fun. I'm your host, Dr. Melanie Short. I'm a chiropractor out of Clarksville, Tennessee. Today, I'd like to introduce today's trivia contestants. I'm going to go ahead and start with Ed LaCara. He's our sports medicine specialist out of Dallas, Texas. We also have Dwayne Golbeck. He is also a sports chiro coming out of Oklahoma near Tulsa. And we have Molly Avola. She's also a chiropractor out of Orlando, Florida. And last but definitely not least, we have Josh Satterlee. He is a chiropractic expert coming from Las Vegas, Nevada. So we have big hopes on how he's going to do today during trivia. Anybody nervous? Everybody excited?
Palpitations going crazy right now.
Tachycardia, baby. Feel it.
Now, Dwayne shouldn't feel too nervous because he was our winner on week 1. So he should have, the front runner this week.
I thought we determined that he cheated.
What?
Yeah, he got the questions ahead of time, we found out.
Bluetooth earrings, dude. That's what I said.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
I see. Now trivia is going to be, how can we get the questions prior to trivia and be a winner? Okay. So I did want a quick touch back from our last session. We were talking about the teach back method, and I promised everybody the Webster Dictionary version, and it's going to disappoint you guys. It just says a communication technique that healthcare professionals use to confirm that patients understand medical information, which essentially could mean any sort of method. So how we were talking about the teach back method is essentially you teach the patient what they should be doing, whether it be an exercise or the medication instructions that you're giving them. And you want them to either repeat that back to you or show you that they know what they're doing by doing the exercise. And that is how we talk about teach back method. It's actually not on today's podcast, so we can follow back in maybe next time on that.
Awesome. So what you're saying is it's not going to be on this week's podcast and we can do it later. I think I understand.
Well, Josh wins an A+ for the teach back method. Thank you for repeating that back to me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't score me any points, but I guess.
No, not this week. So this week's trivia, you guys are going to have 6 questions and you will have 1 minute per question. I would like you to write down your answer and be able to kind of show it up to the camera. I'll go around the room and make sure that we know what everybody guessed, and then I'll give you guys the correct answer.
We lost 2 players already.
Not prepared.
Man.
Not prepared.
I know. Well, it is funny in the world we live in with technology and everything. People are like, oh, paper and a pencil or a pen? I don't know where to find that in my house, and they go scurrying off.
Well, if you guys win, the person with the highest score is going to get a donation towards their state organization or a medical organization of your choice. You'll also get bragging rights to the next week. So if you come back next week or the week after that, if you won 1 week, you can continue to get your bragging rights. And everybody else will make fun of you.
There you go.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move into question number 1. Is going to be an article called Closing the Gap, the Patient-Physician Disconnect. It was written by George Mialawas Jr. in the Health Mark Quarterly Journal from 2009. So there's your premise. Now here's your question. In the patient-physician dyad, empathy is defined as A, the feeling the patients arouse in physicians as projections of the physician's feelings and thoughts. B, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. C, the feeling that physicians arouse in patients as projection of the patient's feelings and thoughts. So
A and
starting
B,
it
A
off.
and C are kind of similar, but they're just patient versus provider, huh?
Exactly. So I started you guys off with kind of a brain scratcher here.
Yeah, equally confusing the way that it's written, but that sounds consistent with research.
I was going to say it is confusing because this is a direct sentence from the research.
Oh, well, then that kind of eliminates my guess.
You guys have 5 seconds. Oh, shoot. And time. All right. Oh, I'll pop it up. Here we go. Okay, so Josh, I got C. Ed, it looks like we got B. Dwayne, C. And Dr. Avola, C as well. All right. Well, let's just see what happens here. Oh, nobody got that one.
What?
What?
So we're talking about empathy. So the patient should see what the physician's feeling, should be feeling something back from the physician, not the physician feeling what the patient is kind of giving off.
Yeah. And we wonder why medical research is not effective in helping out providers, right? When the observations are written like this, like nobody leaves going, oh, I completely understand. That makes sense.
My patients do not give a bleep about how I feel. They care. They just want to get better. Like, I disagree.
Also, are your patients aroused? Is my number one question. The way this is written.
I will guarantee they're not.
Yeah. Oh my God.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, no disrespect to Mr. Myelopoulos or whatever his name is, but rewrite your findings, buddy. Yeah.
All right. So we're starting off strong then.
Yeah.
All tied up at the top.
Hey, at least I'm not in last place.
There we go.
Yet.
Well, we're holding your hand, all of us together in last place.
Perfect.
All right. Let's cruise on to number 2. So number 2, the article is called Best Practice for Patient-Centered Communication, a Narrative Review. It's by Ann King, and it's in the Journal of Graduate Education from 2013. So your question is, studies found that patients of physicians with high malpractice claims have how many more complaints related to communication than the physicians with low malpractice claims? So is it A, which is 4 times more complaints related to communication, B, 10 times more, or C, 2 times more? Patient communication and malpractice is huge deal. Most of the articles that we're going to go over talk about some sort of malpractice suit coming from miscommunication. So you guys have 10 more seconds.
Don't hold it up yet, Ed.
I was going to say, Ed's ready to
Mullet
go.
can cheat,
Nobody
We know how Dwayne is.
Nobody wants to cheat off of me. I could basically just give all the answers, and you should just go the opposite way. I think I've gotten 2 answers right in 3 weeks.
Oh, boy. No, Ed, you had 4 last week. I have your scores.
All right. Well, thank you.
Your time is up. Hey, 4 out of 6 is pretty good. All right, so let's see. Molly has A, Josh has A, Dwayne's got B, and Ed has C. All right.
It's a rebel today.
I guess.
Yeah, well, Ed, you know what? Somebody's got to be the outlier, and sometimes that outlier is correct.
Hey, Ed scores a point.
Yes.
Get
You know
what I
off
think?
the board.
This is my rationale for what I thought. Like, how often do patients really complain? Like, they don't expect much communication from their physician, so it just couldn't be like that much. Like, I mean, at least that was my thinking.
If you look at all the research, though, most of the malpractice research is around surgeons. And like one of my patients one time said, I said, "Oh, how was the surgery with I'll just use a fake name, Dr. Smith?" And he said, "Oh, the best part was that I was under general anesthesia for most of it." It's like,
Yeah.
what a great way to describe your relationship with somebody. But anyways, I think this is interesting because it's communication issues. It's not like I got sued because I cut the wrong finger off or something. You know, like that's
Right,
what shocks
like
me.
big things.
Yeah, it's totally fixable.
100%. All this, like, that's why this information is so great to like get out and talk to people about, because I feel like it's not one that is really like, you don't have a patient communication class in school. I don't care whatever program it is. Like, you might have a like psychology or like socioeconomics type class, but you don't get like a class that's like, how do you effectively speak to your patient in a way that they understand and you understand them and they're happy, like they leave happy. So it's kind of something that we have to think about on our own or read about or talk to other practitioners about.
Yeah. And the other thing is it affects, like, I mean, we're all chiropractors tonight, but like it affects every version of healthcare, all of them. So nobody's free from the strain of it.
Agreed. All right, everybody, let's cruise on to number 3. The article title here is Relations Between Physicians' Behaviors and Analog Patient Satisfaction, Recall, and Impressions. It's by D.L. Roeder in the Medical Care Journal from 1987.
I honestly don't even know what this title means. Like, but okay.
It's okay. We're in a different decade. We're in a different millennia, right?
Sorry. Dwayne, were you born by 1987?
Not even close.
Awesome. Molly, how about you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, at least we have one child on the call. Dwayne.
Why don't you ask me? I'm insulted.
Yeah, I was 90, so I get it.
87, you already had your first advanced degree, right?
Not quite.
Okay, let's see what our question is here. All right, so here's your timer. The more information given by the patient, the physician, the information the patient remembers. So the more information that the physician gives the patient, the more that the patient remembers. That's a statement. What can be a negative of too much information? So A, the patient can recall more. B, a higher proportion is incorrectly recalled. Or C, the patient is unimpressed with the physician. So is the physician talking too much that the patient is like, hey, you're weird? Is the patient getting it wrong? Is the patient able to recall really well? What are we thinking?
Well, I feel like if this is a synonym for like how it goes when you're dating someone or when you meet somebody at a bar and you're hoping to get into the dating scene, like C definitely applies to my years in college. If you swap out physician for young Josh.
Josh, I can't see you talking too much.
No, I would talk way too much. But anyways.
That is your time. Let's get some scores going here. Let's see. Okay. I got Molly B. I got Josh B. I got Ed B. and Dwayne B. We got B's across the board. All right. You guys are correct. So look at that. We got everybody on and grooving here. Ed, you got 2. Killing it.
I'm on
it. Killing it.
Everybody else is on the board. Okay, so this article was kind of interesting. It was all about like enhancing the patient's power. So like, how do you empower a patient to feel as though they got, what they needed out of the visit? They were able to recall the correct information and leave feeling like they know what's going on versus leaving and being confused or leaving and going home and Googling, but essentially giving the patient the power of like their own medical care.
I would argue in 1987, no one was going home and Googling though. By principle,
Well,
they could open up their Encyclopedia Britannica.
there you go.
That they just bought from the door-to-door salesman.
That's right.
All right, let's stop
Saturday morning.
waiting on the 80s.
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
So, Dwayne, I want to explain this to you. Back in the day, we had these books, and they're like...
I remember that. This wasn't that old.
And people used to come to the door and knock, cold call, and be like, hey,
I had them when I was a kid.
I don't believe it.
I promise.
All right, cool.
That's how
We
I got this
definitely had
podcast.
those. My dad had them on the shelf. The whole 40-something volumes.
Yeah.
When my sister got she became a teacher, she graduated college and everything, and I wanted to buy her a gift, but I had no money. So I was in a thrift store and I saw 3 sets of encyclopedias, but every one of them was like missing at least 1 and maybe 2 chapters. But if I combined all 3 sets, it covered the entire alphabet. So I bought them all and I had this huge box. I was like, I got you a gift, and she opened it up. She's like, oh, cool. Incomplete encyclopedias. But they're not incomplete when combined,
From like 1954.
Exactly.
Ours, to be fair, we are in Oklahoma, so we are about 15 years behind everyone else. So that's probably where we got them still.
To your point, Ed, I looked in S and there was no space shuttle. So they were from before this, whatever that would have been 70s or 80s,
Yeah.
Hey, we went to the moon in 1969.
No, we were never on the moon.
Oh.
Okay, that...
Wait a second.
Going a different direction. Here we go.
Yeah, we're going to go into research about the shape of the Earth here in a second. It's at A, sphere, or B, you're an idiot. I mean, flat. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
I'd love to dive into that, but there is just not enough time in the day.
All right, we'll do it a different day.
Next week.
All right.
If that wins, we go that next week.
Donates to the Flat Earth Society.
Yep.
Well, this is your brain break intermission here. We got Ed's leading the pack with 2, and then we got
Incredible.
everybody else with 1. So at least we got everybody on the board, which sometimes when I'm writing these questions, I question what the answer is. So you guys are doing great.
Awesome. How are you doing, Molly? You're kind of quiet, but I want to make sure you're
I'm good.
enjoying yourself.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm tuned in.
She's got her espresso martini or something keeping her awake over there.
Nice. Yeah.
You know me.
Imagine a practice where patient engagement is seamless and unified. With trust-driven care, connect with patients across text, email, social media, and Google Business Chat, all on autopilot. Empower your team to step in effortlessly and engage in real time from anywhere. Say goodbye to multiple software and hello to a simplified practice and life. Trust-driven care is the all-in-one solution to save time, boost revenue, and build patient loyalty. Book your demo today and watch your schedule start to fill up. Now, back to the show.
All right. Well, we're going to cruise on in. We got 3 more questions to go. Okay. All right. Number 4. The title of this article is Assessing the Effects of Physician-Patient Interactions on the Outcomes of Chronic Disease. It's by S.H. Kaplan in the Medical Care Journal from 1989. I brought some oldies for you guys. We talked about this one a little bit last week too. So let's jump into our question here. All right, I'm giving you a true or false. You got 50-50 shot here. A negative response by the physician to a patient's health indicators or outcomes not being met can show a positive patient-physician relationship. So,
What did that say?
yeah, so patient comes in, they say, I haven't been doing well. This medication's not helping. The physician has a negative response to that. Is it going to give a positive patient-physician relationship or a negative patient-physician relationship? So if you chose true, you would be saying that it shows a positive relationship. False would be a negative relationship, if that clears it up a little bit.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And you guys got 3 seconds to decide. It's a 50-50 shot.
Jeez. Melanie,
I know.
timelines here are unbelievable.
I know. Sometimes that 1 minute could be forever. Sometimes it's really short. All right, let's see. We got Ed with false. Okay, Dwayne with false. Josh with false, and Molly with false. Let's cruise on. It is actually true. So I know.
Simply because you're able to tell them something negative.
It shows that the physician cares. If they're like, oh man, it's not working, like, and they're upset that, the information that I gave you isn't helping you, it shows that that physician actually cares and wants you to feel better.
Interesting.
I know.
Interesting because I know in this was in was it chronic disease or something? Is that right? What was the patient population?
Yes. Yeah. It's outcomes with chronic disease or patients with chronic diseases.
Yeah. Because chronic and autoimmune just get screwed with forever. You'll see these time to diagnoses of 5 years or 10 years or something. But it's interesting that what you're saying about the dang it, we tried another one. Let's keep, I wish it would have worked. I can see that in the long run that does form a good relationship. But yeah.
I guess I didn't look at this question like that as more of empathetic to the negative outcomes. I looked at it as more superior to the patient and, getting that rift between patient provider.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I read it too.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of, but remember it was read to us by someone. I'm just saying. I don't want to point fingers. It was read to us.
But I had to read it 3 more times before I said it.
You're just if you're just well, you suck, then that's a negative response. But if it's a negative response that's okay, this didn't go well, so we need to do something else, is something completely different,
Yeah, for sure.
That's an important point and this is in research, they should bold and highlight these things. It's responding negatively to the health indicator, not to the patient's statement or response, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dang, your blood pressure's still high. Man, we got to work on that. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Huh.
See, we come, discussion brings us, full circle. We get there.
Yeah.
But some of this stuff is really interesting to read the discussion on. about like how they got there. Cause like this sentence alone was like, yeah, kind of how everybody said that it was like, oh, well, if my doctor's being negative towards me, I'm not going to like them very much. But kind of showing that like that doctor cares whether it was positive or negative, what your health indicator was, whether it be your A1C was up or your blood glucose was up or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know we were allowed to read the discussion part of research. I thought we had to stick just to the abstract. I always heard that was the best practice.
Some of us just skim to the conclusion, but
that's always good too. I do always love looking at research, and when you read the methods and you're like, what the hell were you, what? Like, how did... Who authorized this thing? Or there's one on like internal hip rotation. And I'm like, these numbers are off the charts. And then it's like, you know, I can't remember, said 122 collegiate baseball pitchers were evaluated. I'm like, yeah, they're not in college pitching baseball unless they have massive amounts of internal hip rotation. Like, what a ridiculous population to test for like a normal value. Anyways, I sound like a pissed off nerd now, but I swear I'm cool.
It's funny you bring that up just about like the methods too, because reading some, personal injury or like car accident research is very interesting that it's like 120 volunteers were rear-ended. It's like, who signs up for this?
What country was this research on? Because
at what velocity are we being rear-ended? And
I'm gonna guess it was China, but that's just me. I'm not sure.
My goodness.
And the findings were that American cars were had a much higher injury rate than the Chinese versions, I'm sure.
They were trying to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
That's why IIHS uses dummies in their jobs testing. But, I digress. Moving on. Question number 5 comes to you from the article titled Physician-Patient Communication, the Relationship with Malpractice Claims Among Primary Care Physicians and Surgeons. It's by W. Levinson, and it's in the Journal of the American Medical Association from 1997.
All right.
Right. Your question is, and time has started, for primary care physicians, the overall length of the visit was significantly higher for physicians with A, no malpractice claims, B, some malpractice claims, and C, many malpractice claims. So overall,
higher length of visit was associated basically with no, some, or many.
Yes, you got it. See what comes of it. You guys got 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's surprising how much of the communication research leads to malpractice. Like almost every one of these articles has a malpractice section.
Yeah.
All right, that's your time. Okay, let's start with Dwayne has A, Ed has A, Josh has A, Molly has A. Look at unanimous across the board. Correct.
Yay.
Yay. Yeah, most of this article is about malpractice claims. I mean, it's in the title, but most of them led to like if the patient was feeling rushed, if the patient was feeling ignored, most of those led to claims. So this question actually showed in the research, I forget which section it was in, but the length of the visit, like the longer the visit was, the happier the patient was. The length of the visit meaning like length actually with the provider, not just I was in the office for 2 hours. But saw the physician for 10 minutes. But yeah, so longer time with the physician, patients felt as though they got more out of it and were less likely to give a malpractice claim.
Was there a threshold like that they saw a change after 7 minutes with the provider, 20 minutes with the provider, 30?
I'd have to go back. I don't remember times on this one.
Yeah.
But that's why I take notes and we can bring it up next week too.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, the interesting thing around all this malpractice claims talk is like, as a provider, I've always been told like, if you ever have somebody file against you, like, don't ever contact them, don't apologize, don't do all the stuff. And then when you see all the stuff, it's like, oh no, you should communicate and you should apologize and you should do this, and it's like in direct conflict with what your malpractice insurance company says. And I just wonder like, which one's right, like if you just apologize and, hey, I'm so sorry that you felt that way. And yeah, there's like, you're already being sued. So what's the worst that happens? It might go the other way. I don't know.
Well, apologizing only makes you human, right?
You would think.
And I think we had, we talked about that on our first podcast too. We talked about like the elements of an apology and how to, do that, how to apologize towards the patient.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just interesting. Anybody had a suit filed against them, or you don't want to do it? Yeah. Oh, you guys are sissies. I did. It's great. A woman was doing it was funny. A woman was doing pull-ups in our gym. She was like using a band, and at the top of a pull-up, this is like her 26th visit for a shoulder issue. And like, this was like we were like trying to do like a big event for her to be like, hey, you're strong enough, like go out and do it. Right. And we were like, oh, she's been working on pull-ups for a while. So she was still using a band, was like knocking out 2 sets of 5 pull-ups. And on the middle of the second set, she just like lets go of the bar. And because she has a band on her foot, you know, like kind of like launches her kind of backwards. She lands on her back, whacks her head. She's sitting there stunned for a while. And then I just remember this moment. She's like, her husband like picks her up, and we apologize. And no, sorry. I was like, I don't know why you let go, but sorry, like sucks.
Sorry that happened here in the office.
Yeah. And sorry, you're an idiot. But I didn't verbalize that part. But anyways, so her husband picked her up, and as she's leaving, she turns back around and she says, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to sue you. And I remember my attorney later said, if anybody ever says that, that's code for I'm absolutely going to sue you. Like, and sure enough, like she didn't file a suit for like a year and a half. And then out of the blue, I totally forgot about it. Out of the blue, we get served. Like, you've been sued, oh, blah, blah. And I'm like reading it going, what the hell are you talking about? And anyways, got on the phone with my malpractice company, and they're like, oh, yeah, sorry. And what was interesting is the first person, when you say, hey, I have a patient, they're suing me, they put you in contact with this person called the provider. It's essentially a counselor. Like, I remember her like asking me like, all right, so what are you thinking? How are you feeling? What was the patient like? Were they disrespectful? And you're just like, yeah. And another thing, she was a total blah, blah, blah. And I can't believe this. And they're like, yeah, get it out. And I think what they're doing is, they're just like dump it all on us so that you don't call her and be like, listen up, you stupid bee. Like, like it was just kind of interesting. And I talked to that woman for like half an hour. She was great at what she did. And afterwards I was like, all right, well, if that lady sues me or not, it's fine. Whatever.
I feel better about it.
Yeah. So anyways, it was just interesting.
Well,
I would say practice harder, you guys. If you're not practicing so hard that you get malpractice claims. Nope.
Well, hey, it wasn't a communication claim though, right? So something that you're learning is helping.
That's right. That's right. I like the positive spin there, Mel. Thank you.
I do what I can. Are you guys ready for are we on our 5th and final question here? We are. Or 6th question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah? You guys ready?
Yeah, for somebody to win this game with like 1 point or whatever it is. Like,
hey, you know what? Some weeks it's going to be easy. Some weeks it's going to be a little eye-opening. Let's call it that. All right. So your 6th question comes from Surgeon's Tone of Voice, a clue to malpractice history. And this one's from Melanie and Body in the Surgery Journal from 2002.
All right.
Your question is, general and orthopedic surgeons who are judged to be more dominant via voice recordings, these are voice recorded sessions, were more likely to fill in the blank than those that sounded less dominant. So A, gain patient trust sooner than those that sounded less dominant. B, do their job better than those that sounded less dominant. Or C, are more likely to be sued than those that sounded less dominant. So this is pretty cool. These doctors were recorded while they were doing their visits. And then somebody, like a third party, listened to only the recording. So they did not see body dynamic. They didn't see how they like spoke with the patient. It was all just on like their tone of voice and time. All right, let's see those answers. Last one here. Okay, so we got Ed's is always hard to see. C. Okay, so Ed has C, Dwayne has A, Molly has A, and Josh has A. All right, you guys ready? The big reveal? It's C.
Oh, dang it.
Ed, man, crushing.
Ed, man, big winner tonight.
The big wiener. Yep. That's what happens.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially those surgeons that sounded dominant over the conversation, their voices were harsher, they were faster, kind of more like clear to the point in a like kind of like aggressive way, I would say is how they like described it in the research. They're more likely to be sued than those that are less dominant and are a little bit more subdued and a little bit slower in their tone of voice.
That's interesting with surgeons because I don't know, part of me is like surgeons they're going to cut you open. So you want the kind of most confident person you can get, right? You don't want them hem-hawing.
Yeah, I think it's part of the language of how they're saying this too. Because dominant, I'm like, that maybe to get sued, but if it was confidence, then
yeah,
I don't know, it would be different. But.
What do you think, Molly?
I agree. I think just sounding more confident gains trust. I know my communication, when I'm very confident talking to patients, it's more trusted. That's kind of how I read the text to it. But dominant could also be more like arrogant or
Mm-hmm.
and so maybe have a negative connotation.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, it's interesting just listening to the this research. They were only listening to the tone of voice, not even like context of what they were saying. It was like all on just like how the doctor sounded, which was very interesting, I thought.
Yeah. That's interesting because you're right. You're not judging. Did they explain it, like the recovery time to the patient? Did they explain the procedure to the patient? They may have done those things, and yet still the dominant voice is tells you as a provider to watch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think it tells us to have a conversation versus being dominant with them. It's the same stuff you talk about, Josh, is, get below their level of the eye. Like, don't stand over the top of them. Look at your body language. Like, you're talking to them like a human being versus being dominant of the conversation. Like, I try to get patients to give me feedback all the time. Like, would you like to be dry needled today, or would you like cupping today? Like, or I could do ART, like, or we could scrape. Like, what do you think? I think just anytime you can give them the option to, and I think the research supports this as well, is you're not dominating the conversation. It's a team effort. We're doing this together, So I think that's helpful in building rapport.
Just out of curiosity, Ed, since you have so many programs you've gone through, like you're an ATC, Chiro, RN, do you feel that any of those, and obviously you haven't attended all the schools for all of those professions, but was anybody more focused on like the communication side of things than others? Like, I always wonder about mental health providers, like their whole job is communication, right? That's their treatment method.
Right.
But
I would say nursing by far, like that was the biggest thing I took out of the nursing program was the compassion, the understanding, the teaching of the patient, instead of like a teach back method, they always emphasize like, see one, teach one, or see one, do one, teach one, where you're making them not only perform it, but teach you back. And so it was like night and day. But of course, I went to chiro school, 1,000 years ago. Might be different now.
How long ago did you go to nursing school?
That was more recent. So I only graduated about 18 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it went through like cycles, or like if the 18 months ago education was based on, previous failures or ways people that got into trouble, etc.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's just the nursing compassion. It's just the way, which is kind of ingrained in the nurse,
Yeah. A little Florence Nightingale action there.
Yep. Old flow.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. We I graduated in 2017, and there was definitely not like a class on that, but Dwayne's shaking his head too. Like, we definitely discussed like in doing like patient exams, or like doing the female male sensitive exams. They're like, you should say this, you should say that. Like, they kind of, but it was one day, one time. There was no grading on it. Like, you could have walked in and just been rude, and you would have still passed as long as you did the exam correctly. So nobody really focused on that.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I've looked at some of that research around malpractice too, and so much of it centers around surgeons. And then in the same research, you'll often see, like, in the same hospital, same setting, same patient, nurses almost get sued never,
Mm-hmm.
and the surgeon will get sued a lot. And it's like, is it simply a communication thing,
I think it's the empathy thing. I think it's, the rush thing. It's who you spend more time with too, typically. All my clinicals, you'd sit on a ward, and you might see the physician like 3 minutes on a shift, and it's usually to yell at you for something. Like, it was like, but you're the one that's in there feeding the patient. You're like turning the patient. You're making sure they're comfortable. They ring the bell. They need something. It's the nurse or the nurse assistant that's going in there. They never see in a hospitalization. You never see the doctor. So it's like,
Yeah.
Who are you spending all the time with? Who are you having the conversations with? Who's having the conversations with your family? Like, especially in like the hospice setting, like that was the most Like we never saw the physician, never, ever, 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 ever. Usually he called stuff in. Like it was always, we were dealing with the families, we were dealing with everything else. So it's just a different, it was interesting going through, you know, chiro school. You're the doctor, you're the one that's making all these decisions. And then you get retrained almost from the other side. And I'm like, God, I wish I really would have gotten a lot of this, you know, back in the day.
Yeah, just because you went from nursing and then went back into running a private practice chiropractic clinic, I'm just interested. What did you implement from your nursing lessons that because the great thing about private practice chiro is like you get to decide what the methods are, right? You get to decide how we're going to deliver this. So was there anything you totally changed in your practice after that, or that you modified?
I don't think totally changed. Like I had taken a lot of courses on education of the patient. I'd always like gone out of the way to educate. I would try to communicate the best I can, but I had done some like coaching also with communication in patients. Like this is probably 15 years ago. A lot of the stuff that you talk about, you know, like I was just saying, like never stand above the patient, never turn your back to the patient, like all these things that are so easy to do, but if we don't think about it, you know, you do it. Like, so, it is interesting though, like, cause my wife practices with me. She's, you know, runs the office, and she's like, you are such a better doctor now when I listen to you outside the door. I'm like, really? I'm like, geez, I wouldn't think my clinical skills have changed very much. And they probably haven't. It's just more about probably a lot more empathy and patience.
Yeah. Your wife's also like 4'10", so she probably makes you work hard at the don't stand over the patient and talk. You know, you're like sitting on the floor.
Yeah. That's
crisscross applesauce. So tell me what's going on.
Well, that's an awesome compliment.
It is an awesome compliment. Yeah. But, because I can be gruff for sure. Like today I was so irritated with the patient. He gets in there, he's 7 minutes late. He's like on his phone. And I was basically like, listen, dude, like, my wife was just like, oh my God, you got to like tone it down. I'm like, it was so rude. I'm like, just get off your phone before you come in my office. Like you're already behind. I've got patients waiting. Like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And it totally affects the way my treatment was too. So I got to just like calm the F down.
Yeah, I think that's the part that's never addressed is like, we are also humans that are getting annoyed, that are frustrated, that are tired, that, you know, just found out our kid had to go home sick from school or whatever. And then you're just supposed to put that totally on a shelf and take that body and that, you know, psychology off and then go into doctor mode and walk into the office like you did on every other patient that day. It's just, it's an impossible feat, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And
that actually came to surface yesterday. A colleague of mine had to put a dog down over the weekend that had been with her for 15 years. And she's newer, fresh, like more out of school recently. And she was like, I'm struggling to put that hat off and like be happy and perky to patients that need me, because right now I need silence and a moment to myself to grieve. So it definitely is something that we struggle with as doctors on a daily basis, I would say.
Yeah. It's a challenge. I mean, and like looking at this research, it would be, as one of my mentors said, man, this job would be so easy if we weren't dealing with these pesky humans. Ain't that the truth, man?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think you guys did awesome today, but there was one that clearly stood out, and that was Ed. So everybody give Ed a big round of applause today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Dominated the room.
I finally scored some points.
Hey, you know what? It's been close. And you finally you stopped picking the opposite of what I was going for, and you started understanding what I was leading you to, and you selected the right answer.
I'm like AI. I'm learning.
There you go. And you get to, brag until we meet again.
Sounds good. Can I send the money to the National Athletic Trainers Association?
Yes.
Oh, you know what? I'll do it to the Texas State Athletic Trainers.
Athletic Trainers.
Oh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping it was called the Texas Athletic Training Association, aka the Tatas. Shut. Yes, so.
It might be.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Great. What a wonderful.
And why them, Ed? Just out of curiosity, why that group?
They don't have a lot of money. These guys grossly underpaid, overworked. So I figured, most of the other ones have gone to the Chiro Association. So I figured I'll throw a little bone to the athletic trainers.
That's wonderful.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Trust Driven Trivia, brought to you by Trust Driven Care. Imagine a world where all your patient communication is in one place, seamless, effortless, and on autopilot. That's the power of Trust Driven Care. If you're ready to streamline your practice, check out trustdrivencare.com and see what's possible. Join us next week for more laughs, new guests, and fresh questions that turn medical research into pure fun. Trust Driven Trivia, making healthcare knowledge exciting, one question at a time.